first episode of Crimes and Closings. I'm Dia Kappelman, and this is Jenny Olson-Payton.
Hello.
And we are both licensed realtors, and Jenny specializes in short sales, which we'll be talking about a little bit later, as our closings part. But first is our crimes part, something we both have a passion about, true crime, and wanted to go into stories and have a little bit of fun with stories that are unique, maybe you haven't heard of before, just struck our fancy. So you showed me, yes.
I'm trying really hard, so people that know us know that we like to cut up a lot, and this is a little nerve-wracking, so I'm trying really hard not to be like that segment from Saturday Night Live, the Sweaty Balls. Have you seen that?
Oh no.
Where we're both talking in monotone tones, and we're telling you a story. So please bear with us. This is our first episode.
It is, and we're gonna have some fun with it.
Absolutely.
We're gonna have some fun.
Respectful fun.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Fun.
So,
you showed me some footage, some amazing footage of these twins from a reality TV show in the UK and running into traffic.
Yeah, it's crazy. So this is the story of the Ericksson Twins, Ursula and Sabina. This happened in May of 2008. And the crazy thing is that there's not a lot of normal footage of weird and unusual things happening. If it is, it's usually like grainy, like, I swear it's Bigfoot, cell phone footage. But this actually was caught on tape by a reality TV show in the UK called Motorway Cops. So basically, Ursula was over in the US and Sabina was living in Ireland with her partner and two children. Ursula flew over to visit Sabina, and something happened. We're not quite sure, but there was some kind of argument that Sabina had with her partner in the evening. And so Ursula and Sabina then decided to board a ferry and go over to over into Liverpool. So when they got there, they actually went immediately to the police station and filed a claim saying they were concerned with Sabina's children with her partner. Wow. So the police followed up on that, and the partner was like, we got into a fight at like 11:30 last night, and the girls took off. I'm not quite sure what's going on. And I think it's important to notice and to talk about at this point is that up until this point, the twins, neither of them had a history of erratic behavior, psychotic disorder, crime, nothing. I mean, they were, in all accounts, two upstanding citizens.
Was there any history between the partner and the kids that
No.
you would be concerned about?
Nope.
So this was out of the blue.
Really out of the blue.
Okay.
So the police, after they checked it out, they kind of let the girls go. And the girls ended up taking off, walking, they actually boarded a bus. And the bus ended up going to a rest stop and actually ended up letting them off because they had started acting a little odd. They were clutching their bags to them. They weren't letting them check them or put them up in one of the overhead compartments. So the bus driver actually let them off at a bus stop, and they took off walking down the M6 motorway. And this is where things start getting a little weird. You see from CT footage the girls walking down the middle aisle of the freeway and deciding that they were going to cross. So Ursula jumps the fence and actually gets hit by a car. It was very minor. She was okay.
Really?
Yeah, very okay. The police officer, the car stops, and she ends up. The girls go to the side of the highway. The police show up. The footage is showing the girls literally on the side of the road.
And this is where the reality show comes in.
Yeah, the reality show comes into some of the police officers showing up to assist with the call because of Ursula getting hit by the car. So you see in the video 3 police officers having a conversation, explaining what's going on. One police officer standing with the girls. They're relaxed. They're smoking. They're chatting. They're laughing. And then all of a sudden, Ursula takes off into traffic. And this is like, we're talking a busy freeway. The police officer grabs her coat to try to pull her back in. She pulls herself out of her coat and runs smack into the side of a semi. Semi goes over her, crushes her legs. And so as the chaos is kind of ensuing, cars are starting to slow down and stop, and the police are responding to try to help Ursula. You see Sabina just take off into traffic too. And we're not talking about like taking into traffic to try to check on her sister. She is watching a car and fully jumps in front of that car. She ends up, it's some little Volkswagen. She hits it, she cracks the windshield, goes up over the car, and is knocked unconscious for 15 minutes. Unfortunately, Ursula is in really bad shape. Her legs are crushed. She can't move. They're attending to her wounds. They're trying to get other police and paramedics there. And then after Sabina wakes up, she starts getting really aggressive. She actually jumps up. She punches a policewoman in the face.
Which you shouldn't be able to do after being hit by a car.
They said statistically it's so odd that 2 people survived getting hit by a semi in a car, let alone one of them being able to actually get up. And she punched the police officer in the face, jumped to the other side of the freeway. And it took 5 grown men to actually restrain her, get her in handcuffs, and get her sedated. Surprisingly, they said there was really no signs of alcohol, drugs, anything like that in her system that would make her would give her superhuman strength.
Because when you watch the video, she really does just pop up.
Yeah.
And for Ursula to have been hit by a semi and just some crushed legs.
And she has no interest in checking on her sister, which is also really weird.
Yeah.
The girls actually are, they're talking to each other. And at one point, Ursula yells to Sabina, "They're going to steal your organs." And the whole time that she's running around, she's actually calling for the police, which the police kept trying to tell her, "Hey, we're the police. It's okay. We're here to help you." So, I mean, and if you just watch this video, I'm amazed that about what happens next. So they get her, Ursula's taken to the hospital. Sabina is actually taken to the police station. She's only held for a couple of hours. By the time that she's let go, there's video footage of her laughing and joking with the police officers. She's calm, cool, and collected. I mean, there is no sense that she is...
Either mentally or physically?
No, there is some weird footage of her actually saying to the police officers, but again, it's very... Knowing now what happened, you're looking at it like, da, da, da. But it's very... She says, in Sweden, we have a saying that one accident never happens on its own. Often it's followed by another or even a second.
Oh, no.
So, unfortunately, that's very bad foreshadowing. But they went ahead and released her. So she's actually out walking the street, has her little plastic bag full of all her stuff from the police officers, and she runs into 2 gentlemen that are walking a dog. Glenn Hollinshead, who is 54, and I can never remember his name, Peter Malloy. So they were just 2 friends. She's talking to the dog, patting it and loving on it, just talking to the gentleman, explaining that she's looking for her sister. Her sister's in the hospital somewhere. So they struck up this conversation, and she's like, "Well, where's the nearest bed and breakfast or hotel? Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and go to sleep, and then tomorrow I'll start looking for Ursula again." And so they're like, "Well, why don't you come back to our place? Or come back to Glenn's place," which again just was a little weird. So she goes back. They had no clue that something was really, really wrong.
But you still probably shouldn't do that.
No, probably not. Definitely don't do that in the future. I mean, I like it when people love my dog, but I rarely invite them back to the place.
After this story, you don't.
Yeah. After seeing this, I'm sorry, it's not happening. So they go back, they hang out, and throughout the evening, she starts getting more nervous. She keeps getting up and peering outside, and really up until that point, the gentlemen were kind of thinking maybe she was fleeing an abusive situation. Mm-hmm. There was something off, but it wasn't concerning. Then she started doing things like she offered them cigarettes. They started smoking them. She ran up, grabbed them out of their mouths and said, "Oh, they could be poisoned," and threw them away. So then they're kind of like, okay, yeah, maybe it's just time to call it a night. So Peter ends up leaving. Night goes on. All day the next day, Glenn is calling around hospitals trying to help Sabina find Ursula. And then at 7:30, they're cooking dinner. Sabina grabs a knife and ends up stabbing Glenn 5 times. Glenn walks out of the kitchen, out into the front yard, collapses in front of a neighbor, and specifically says, "She stabbed me." Unfortunately, Mr. Hollins had passed away. So at this point, Sabina takes off running. She grabs a hammer from the house, and she's seen on more footage running down the street, hitting herself in the head with a hammer. A gentleman ended up pulling over, trying to help her. The interesting thing is they don't say that he tried to just help her. They say that he literally ran over and tackled her. Well, then at this point, they're on the ground. She reaches in her pocket and pulls out a roof tile.
A roof tile?
A roof tile. There's no indication of where she picked this up, potentially just on her walk, and hits him over the head with it. He ends up thankfully okay, but he was stunned. And finally, at that point, then the paramedics caught up with them. She takes off down another, I guess, road, jumps off a 12-meter bridge onto another freeway, breaks 2 ankles, and has a cracked skull.
They really need to keep them away from the freeways.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. There's a lot of freeway madness there. So she ends up going to the hospital. She's in the hospital for 4 months, getting everything taken care of. Almost immediately, she starts getting better. There's no indication of any psychotic episodes, any issues. She's laughing, joking, really being lucid, being a very normal person.
Is she aware of what's happened?
So, and that's the other interesting thing. She makes no comment on it. So anytime anybody asks her anything about it, she just responds, no comment. So normally, you know, my spider senses start tingling and I'm like, yeah, there's something weird about this. The very, very weirdest thing is that both prosecution and defense agree that she was not in the right mind. But she also it was a temporary insanity. They fully believe that she did not know what she was doing. And so they ended up giving her 5 years in prison. She pled to manslaughter with diminished responsibility. And everybody agreed with that. In fact, one person said, we can't blame her any more than we can blame a rabid dog that bites somebody.
Wow.
So they're truly saying that something happened mentally and she was
But only because she was in proximity to her sister.
So, and that's the interesting thing. So there's actually historical evidence of something called folie à deux. And that essentially means a temporary mutual insanity. It's seen in twins occasionally. But usually it's seen in twins that are socially isolated. There was really no indication of them being socially isolated. But it seems like maybe Ursula was having kind of a psychotic episode. And because Sabina was in proximity to her, that became a shared episode. So she was sentenced to 5 years. She ended up only doing 349 days, which is just a little over a year, which is interesting. Again, lots of footage, very normal, didn't put up a fight, seemed to be a model prisoner, just kind of doing her own thing. Again, nothing that has been outstanding. So then she was released. Sabina is said to be in Norfolk with her partner and her children. And Ursula came back to the United States, and the last thing I read about her was that she'd been baptized, not recently, this was probably in 12 or 13, baptized in a church in Seattle. So both seem to be living away from each other, but very normal. There's no indication that any of this behavior ever happened again, which is just weird. Definitely brought up some issues with mental health laws. I think anybody can see, I definitely don't want to put blame our police officers, and everybody's under a ton of stress. I get it. But anybody, when you watch that video and you see these two women run into traffic, it brought up a lot of questions about why she was just held for an hour or so in the police station and then allowed to be to let out. Glenn Hollenhead's brother is very, very vocal about the fact that something needs to change. And I have to agree with him. Had something changed and they were able to hold her longer on some kind of mental health concern, obviously their paths never would have crossed, and this tragedy never would have happened. So it's a very interesting case, and I've read about the folie à deux for other times, and I actually think I'm really gonna dive in there and kind of see, especially how it relates to twins. Yeah. But yeah, definitely check out the YouTube footage. It is just, it's intense to watch. No blood, not gory, which is good, surprisingly. But definitely an interesting watch because they were definitely not in their right mind. So I think I could say definitely a couple more times. So that is the story of the Ericksson Twins.
That was good.
So I'm anxious to see what you have for me next time.
It's going to be good.
I hear those costumes.
We might not start off with costumes.
Okay.
But we'll get there eventually.
Okay, good.
So now for the real estate, the closings part of our crimes and closings. We were talking earlier about just how the market is looking, how everything is still so inflated, but maybe that's going to start changing soon because foreclosures and short sales are going to become a little more prominent. I had a buyer just this week say that they wanted to wait until there was more foreclosures open, just to kind of relieve the pressure. But not everybody can do that. So what are you seeing as far, now that forbearances are over, what's coming to the market?
So it's interesting. If you've seen any of my other videos, I've been talking a lot about the fact with forbearance, the last 2 years, I've really only sent out about 40 letters. So I send out, I do some searches and I find people that have auction dates set or potentially need short sales. And I send them a letter just introducing myself, letting them know who I am, what I do, and offering my services and my help. So in the last 2 years, I've only sent 40 letters. I've easily sent over 40 letters in the last 2 weeks.
Wow.
So every day I jump on and there's more and more that I'm sending. So we're definitely seeing them hit the market. Forbearance really ended in October of last year for most people. And so we're starting to see the buildup of people that haven't been able to pay their mortgage. So I'd say by mid to end summer, we're going to see a lot more. Now, it can be a good idea for buyers to get foreclosures and short sales because they can put a little bit of sweat equity into things. But it's also important to note that there are certain issues that could come up with foreclosures and short sales. You really need to know what you're able to do and really have a good budget in mind. I hear lots of horror stories about people wanting to save $1 and end up having to spend $50 to get something fixed. So definitely, make sure you know your buyers. You do a great job of that, and make sure they're aware of what they've got going on. But yeah, I think we're going to see a lot more, and I think it's going to be an interesting year.
Yeah.
So,
thank you for your expertise.
no problem. Thanks for being my cohort on this magic carpet ride that we're going to call Crimes and Closings.
I can't wait.
Yes, it'll be
It's
fun.
gonna be good.
So have a great rest of the day, everybody.
See you
Thanks for
later.
tuning in.